You open your eyes in the morning, and for just a moment, that precious, unguarded moment before memory floods back, you exist without context. No past, no future, just the raw fact of awareness itself. But then it all comes rushing back. Your name, your story, the weight of yesterday pressing against today, and in that flood of returning identity, you never stop to ask the most unsettling question of all. Where were you before you were you? Time forgot you existed before you were born. Not in the way we casually say we forget things like losing keys or missing appointments. Time forgot you in the deepest, most complete way possible. It carved out space for billions of years without you, spinning galaxies and collapsing stars, orchestrating the dance of quantum particles and the birth of consciousness itself, all while maintaining perfect ignorance of your eventual existence. Think about this for a moment. Really think about it. 13.8 billion years passed. Entire civilizations of stars lived and died. Black holes formed and evaporated. The universe expanded, cooled, complexified, and somewhere in that vast temporal ocean it began to dream, and still, it had no knowledge that you would someday open your eyes and wonder about your place in it all. But here's where the paradox becomes almost unbearably strange. If time truly forgot you existed before you were born, then what is memory? What is the persistence of consciousness that allows you to remember yesterday, or even the sentence you just read? Because according to the deepest mathematics of quantum mechanics, the universe doesn't actually move forward through time the way we experience it. Instead, all moments past, present, and future exist simultaneously in what physicists call the block universe. In this model, your birth wasn't an event that happened. It's an event that is happening, has always been happening, will always be happening. The moment you first opened your eyes exists right now, somewhere in the four-dimensional fabric of space-time, as real and present as this moment of reading these words. Time didn't forget you before you were born. Time never forgot you because in the deepest sense you were always there, waiting to be discovered by the universe's slowly evolving capacity for self-awareness. But if this is true, then why does it feel like you emerged from nothing? Why does the past before your birth feel like a void, a time when you simply weren't? The answer leads us into one of the most disturbing territories in modern physics, the observer effect. The universe doesn't just exist, it exists because it's being observed, and every act of observation changes what's being observed, retroactively, backward through time. Your consciousness isn't just experiencing the universe, it's participating in the universe's continuous act of deciding what's real. Every memory you form, every moment you observe, sends ripples backward through the quantum foam, helping to determine which version of the past actually happened. The universe forgot you existed before you were born because in a very real sense, you hadn't yet decided whether to exist or not. This is why memory feels so strange, so unreliable, so dreamlike. You're not just remembering the past, you're continuously creating it, selecting it from an infinite landscape of possibilities. The child you were, the moments that shaped you, the very fact of your birth, all of it exists in a state of quantum superposition until the moment you remember it, observe it, collapse it into a single definite reality. And here's the most unsettling part. If your consciousness is continuously creating the past through the act of observation, then what happens to all the other possible pasts that don't get observed? What happens to the versions of reality where you were never born, where time continued its ancient dance without ever knowing your name? They exist too. Right now, in parallel universes that branch away from this one, every time you make an observation, every time you collapse a wave function, every time you remember something and make it real, there are infinite versions of reality where time never forgot you existed before you were born, because in those realities you never existed at all. The universe already knows how you'll end, not in the supernatural sense of fate or destiny, but in the cold, mathematical certainty of information theory and the arrow of time. Every atom in your body carries within it the complete history of its journey through the cosmos, and embedded in that history is the inexorable logic of entropy, the universe's tendency toward disorder, toward forgetting, toward the eventual heat death of everything. You are a temporary arrangement of matter and energy, a brief eddy in the flow of cosmic entropy, and just as the universe forgot you existed before you were born, it will forget you existed after you die. But the knowledge of your ending isn't hidden in some distant future. It's written into the quantum structure of reality itself, accessible right now to any consciousness sophisticated enough to read the universe's deepest language. This is what physicists mean when they talk about the block universe. The idea that all of time, past, present, and future, exists simultaneously. Your death isn't something that will happen. It's something that is happening right now in the four-dimensional fabric of space-time. The universe knows exactly when and how you'll end, because from its perspective, you've already ended. You ended the moment you began. But knowing this doesn't make it less mysterious. In fact, it makes it more mysterious, because if the universe already knows how you'll end, then what is the nature of choice? What is the meaning of the decisions you make, the paths you take, the love you give and receive? Are you simply playing out a script that was written 13.8 billion years ago, or is there something about consciousness itself that introduces genuine novelty into the cosmic story? Your consciousness isn't just experiencing the universe, it's changing it, moment by moment, thought by thought. The universe may know how you'll end, but it doesn't know what you'll think about your ending. It doesn't know what meaning you'll create, what love you'll experience, what beauty you'll recognize in the brief time between your beginning and your conclusion. This is the paradox of predetermined endings and unpredictable awareness. The universe knows the shape of your story, but it's constantly surprised by the content of your consciousness. Every moment of genuine awareness, every flash of understanding, every recognition of beauty or truth or connection adds something genuinely new to the cosmic information structure. And here's what's truly beautiful about this. The universe's knowledge of your ending doesn't diminish the significance of your awareness. It amplifies it. Knowing that you are a temporary arrangement of matter and energy makes every moment of consciousness more precious, not less. The universe didn't spend 13.8 billion years evolving toward complexity and awareness just to play out a predetermined script. It evolved toward complexity and awareness because consciousness is the universe's way of experiencing surprise, of discovering something new about itself. Your ending is written in the stars, but your awareness is writing new stars. Yesterday's light still travels through your dreams because light, unlike consciousness, doesn't age. The photons that left the surface of the sun 8 minutes ago are the same age as the photons that left distant galaxies billions of years ago. And every night, when you close your eyes and drift into sleep, your brain begins to process the visual information it collected during the day, information carried by light that has traveled unimaginable distances to reach you. The light that illuminated your morning coffee originated in the nuclear furnace of the sun. The light that reflected off your loved one's face began its journey in stellar cores that died before Earth was formed. But here's where the physics becomes almost magical in your dreams. This ancient light gets mixed with your memories, your fears, your hopes, your unconscious processing of the day's experiences. The light that carries information about distant galaxies gets woven together with the light that carries information about your immediate surroundings, and your dreaming mind creates narratives, stories, impossible landscapes that blend the cosmic with the personal. You dream of flying because yesterday's light carried information about birds, about clouds, about the vast open sky. You dream of lost loves because yesterday's light reflected off photographs, off familiar objects, off the faces of people who trigger your deepest memories. But the light in your dreams isn't just from yesterday. Some of it is ancient beyond imagination. The cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the Big Bang itself, continuously bathes your body in photons that are nearly 14 billion years old. These photons carry information about the universe when it was only 380,000 years old, when it first became transparent to light, when the cosmic dark ages ended and the first stars began to shine. Your dreams are illuminated by the birth cry of the universe itself. This is why dreams feel so significant, so laden with meaning, even when they seem nonsensical. They're not just random neural firing, they're the universe's ancient light interacting with your evolved consciousness, creating new patterns of meaning, new possibilities for understanding, new ways of seeing the deep connections between the cosmic and the personal. In your dreams, you don't just see the past, you participate in it. The light that shows you your childhood home is the same light that witnessed the formation of the solar system. The light that illuminates your deepest fears is the same light that has been traveling through space since before life existed on Earth. Your dreams are a conversation between your individual consciousness and the collective memory of the universe itself. And when you wake up, you carry this conversation with you. The insights that emerge from dreams, the creative solutions that appear overnight, the emotional processing that happens during sleep, all of it is the result of your consciousness integrating ancient light with immediate experience, cosmic information with personal meaning. You are not separate from the universe that contains you. You are the universe becoming aware of itself, one dream at a time, one moment of consciousness at a time, one recognition of beauty and meaning and connection at a time. Yesterday's light doesn't just travel through your dreams, it becomes your dreams, and your dreams become new light, new information, new possibilities for awareness and understanding. What does it mean to be the universe's way of asking questions about itself? You stand at the edge of a thought that has been waiting for you your entire life. It whispers through the quantum foam, echoes in the space between heartbeats, and lives in the silence after your last word dissolves into air. This thought is simple, devastating, and true. You are a pattern the universe is slowly learning to forget. Right now, as you breathe, as you exist, as you think these very thoughts, the cosmos is engaged in the most delicate act of remembrance. Every atom in your body carries the signature of dying stars. Every synapse fires with electricity older than your solar system. Every moment of your consciousness is the universe looking at itself through your eyes and wondering what it means to be you. But memory, you see, is not forever. Even the universe forgets. Think about the last time you tried to remember someone's name. That moment when it sits just beyond reach, familiar yet impossible to grasp. The universe experiences this with you, constantly. Your name, your thoughts, your dreams, the way you laugh when no one is listening, the fear that keeps you awake at 3 a.m. wondering if any of this matters. All of it exists as information patterns in the cosmic web, vibrating through quantum fields, encoded in the very structure of space-time itself. The universe remembers you the way you remember childhood summers, vividly, then hazily, then as fragments, then as feelings without form, and finally not at all. This is not cruelty. This is entropy. You are a temporary decrease in entropy, a brief moment where the universe organized itself into something that could love, suffer, hope, and question its own existence. You are consciousness arising from chaos, awareness emerging from void, a self-organizing pattern of matter that somehow learned to ask, "What am I?" And the universe, through you, whispers back, "You are what I become when I try to understand myself." But understanding requires memory, and memory requires energy, and energy dissipates. Always. The heat death of the universe is not some distant cosmic catastrophe. It is happening now, one forgotten name at a time, one fading memory at a moment, one dying star after another, until even the echo of existence becomes too faint to detect. Consider the people you loved, who are no longer here. They existed once with the same vivid intensity you feel right now. They had inner worlds as complex as yours, dreams as real as the ones that keep you awake, fears as sharp as the ones that cut through your certainty. And now they exist only in the quantum information scattered through the universe, their consciousness dispersed across probability waves, their names slowly being forgotten by the cosmic memory that once held them. This is what happens to you. This is what happens to everything. The universe remembers, then it forgets, then it remembers differently, then it forgets again. Your consciousness is not some special exception to this rule. It is the rule making itself known through the very experience of being you. Yet here's the paradox that should terrify and comfort you in equal measure. In order for the universe to forget your name, it must first remember it perfectly. Right now, at this moment, you are being remembered with absolute precision. Every thought, every heartbeat, every quantum fluctuation in your brain is being recorded in the quantum field that connects all things. You exist as information, as pattern, as a specific arrangement of probability and possibility that has never existed before and will never exist again. The universe is writing your name in the language of particle physics, spelling it out in the grammar of relativity, speaking it in the dialect of quantum mechanics. Your name is written in the spin of electrons, in the vibration of strings, in the curvature of space-time around your body. Right now you are the universe's most perfect memory of what it means to be you. But memory is not permanent. Even quantum information decays. Even the vacuum of space forgets what it once held. The universe that remembers you so perfectly now will, given enough time, lose track of the specific arrangement of matter and energy that spells out your existence. And when the universe finally forgets your name completely, when the last quantum echo of your existence finally dissipates into the heat death of everything, what remains? What survives the forgetting? Perhaps nothing. Perhaps everything. Perhaps the question itself is what survives, carried forward in the consciousness of others who will one day face the same inevitable forgetting. You are not just a name the universe remembers, you are the universe's capacity to question whether memory matters, whether existence has meaning, whether love survives entropy. In the space between remembering and forgetting, in the quantum uncertainty between being and non-being, You exist as pure possibility. You are Schrödinger's consciousness, simultaneously remembered and forgotten, significant and meaningless, eternal and ephemeral, until the universe finally decides what you were and what you meant. And maybe, just maybe, the universe's forgetting is not erasure, but transformation. Maybe when the cosmos finally loses track of your name, that forgetting becomes the space where something new can be remembered. Maybe death is not the universe losing information, but the universe making room for new patterns, new consciousness, new ways of asking the eternal question. What does it mean to exist? You stand at the edge of this thought, and the thought stands at the edge of you, and together you wait to see whether memory or forgetting wins, whether your name echoes forever or fades into the silence that existed before words, before names, before the universe learned to remember anything at all. The universe holds your name like a prayer, like a secret, like a question. It's still learning how to ask. And you, in this moment, are both the question and the answer, both the remembering and the forgetting, both the name being spoken and the silence after it fades. In the heart of the Orion Nebula, 1,344 light-years from your beating heart, a star is being born from the death of another. Right now, as you exist in your brief human moment, hydrogen atoms that once lived inside a dying giant are collapsing into new arrangements, new possibilities, new ways of burning bright against the endless dark. This is not poetry, this is stellar nucleosynthesis. This is the universe's memory system, written in fusion fire and gravitational collapse. You are made of these dead stars. The calcium in your bones once burned in the core of a white dwarf. The iron in your blood was forged in the final moments of a supernova explosion. The oxygen you breathe was created in the dying gasps of massive stars that exhausted their nuclear fuel billions of years before Earth was even a whisper of possibility in the cosmic void. Every star that dies becomes the memory of every star that will live. This is how the universe remembers. Not through consciousness, not through intention, but through the fundamental process of matter, remembering how to become matter again. Energy, remembering how to become energy again. Possibility, remembering how to become possibility again. Consider the star HD 85512, burning quietly in the constellation Vela. In approximately 5.2 billion years, it will exhaust its hydrogen fuel, expand into a red giant, and eventually shed its outer layers into space. Those layers will drift through the cosmos for millions of years, cooling, condensing, mixing with the remnants of other dead stars until gravity pulls them together into something new. The carbon that once lived in HD 85512's core might one day become part of a planet. The oxygen might become part of an atmosphere. The iron might become part of something that could be called life. This is stellar reincarnation. This is the universe's way of ensuring that nothing is ever truly lost, even when everything seems to end. Every atom in your body has been recycled through multiple stellar generations. You are not just made of star stuff. You are the memory of stars that died so you could exist. But here's what should make you pause in wonder and terror. You are also the star that will die, so something else can remember. Right now, the atoms in your body are temporary arrangements, borrowed from the cosmic recycling system that connects every dead star to every living moment. When your consciousness fades, when your body returns to dust, when your name is forgotten by everyone who ever spoke it, your atoms will continue their journey through the stellar memory system. You are a temporary crystallization of stellar memory, a brief moment when the universe's recycling system organized itself into something that could think about recycling systems. You are the cosmos examining its own capacity for transformation, death, and rebirth. You are a star, learning what it means to be temporarily human. The life cycle of stars follows patterns that mirror the life cycle of consciousness, of memory, of everything that dares to exist. Main sequence stars burn steadily for billions of years, fusing hydrogen into helium in their cores, maintaining a delicate balance between gravitational collapse and nuclear fusion. This is stellar middle age, the cosmic equivalent of your daily existence, stable, predictable, sustainable for eons. But fuel runs out. Always. Even the most massive stars eventually exhaust their nuclear reserves and face a choice: collapse into a white dwarf and fade slowly into the cosmic background, or explode in a supernova that briefly outshines entire galaxies. There is no third option. There is no escape from the fundamental thermodynamics that govern all existence. This is happening to you right now on a different timescale. Your body burns glucose and oxygen in cellular furnaces, maintaining the metabolic balance that keeps you alive. Your brain consumes 20% of your body's energy just to maintain consciousness, to keep the neural networks firing that create your sense of self, your capacity to love, your ability to fear death and wonder about meaning. But fuel runs out. Always. Your cells accumulate damage faster than they can repair it. Your telomeres shorten with each division. Your mitochondria, those ancient bacterial symbionts that power your existence, slowly lose their efficiency. You are a biological star moving through your own main sequence lifetime toward an inevitable endpoint that no amount of will or desire can prevent. Yet, like dying stars, your ending becomes the beginning of something else. The carbon dioxide you exhale feeds the photosynthesis that creates oxygen for future breaths. The heat your body generates warms the space around you. In stellar nurseries like the Eagle Nebula, new stars condense from the enriched gas clouds left behind by their stellar ancestors. These newborn suns burn with elements that didn't exist in the early universe: carbon, oxygen, silicon, iron, all forged in the nuclear furnaces of previous stellar generations. Each new star is both itself and a memory of every star that died to make its existence possible. But the most profound truth is this: the stars don't choose to die so others can live. Death and rebirth are not moral choices in the cosmic recycling system. They are inevitable consequences of the laws of physics, the unavoidable result of entropy and thermodynamics, and the fundamental structure of space-time itself. Yet somehow, consciousness emerges from this amoral process. Somehow, matter learns to care about matter. Somehow, the universe develops the capacity to mourn its own transience, to find beauty in its own fragility, to love in the face of inevitable loss. You are that somehow. You are the universe's way of caring about its own mortality, of finding meaning in its own recycling system, of loving the temporary arrangements of matter and energy that briefly organize themselves into something that can love back. And you, suspended between stellar death and stellar birth, between cosmic forgetting and cosmic remembering, exist as both the memory and the mourner, both the star that died and the star that will be born, both the ending and the beginning of something the universe is still learning how to understand. Listen. In the silence between your heartbeats, in the space between thoughts, in the quantum vacuum that separates every atom in your body from every other atom, entropy is speaking. It speaks in the language of heat dissipation, in the grammar of probability distributions, in the dialect of irreversible processes, and what it whispers, over and over again, is a secret that infinity has always known, but that you are only now beginning to understand. The secret is this: everything that begins must end, but everything that ends has always already begun again. You exist in the middle of a conversation between entropy and infinity that started with the Big Bang and will continue long after the last black hole evaporates into Hawking radiation. This conversation is not about you, but you are part of it. You are both a word being spoken and a silence being maintained, both a question being asked and an answer being forgotten. Right now, as you read these words, your body is increasing the entropy of the universe. Every breath you take converts ordered oxygen molecules into disordered carbon dioxide. Every thought you think releases waste heat from neural processes. Every heartbeat pumps blood through a cardiovascular system that is slowly wearing itself out, one pulse at a time. You are a localized decrease in entropy that creates a much larger increase in entropy everywhere else. This is not your fault. This is not anyone's fault. This is simply what it means to exist as a complex, self-organizing system in a universe governed by the second law of thermodynamics. You are what happens when entropy learns to look at itself, when disorder develops the capacity to marvel at its own temporary arrangements, when chaos briefly organizes itself into something that can ask, why does anything exist instead of nothing? The answer entropy whispers is both terrifying and beautiful, because infinity already knows how everything ends. Existence is free to explore every possible way of beginning. Consider the heat death of the universe, that distant future when all available energy has been converted to unusable heat, when all temperature differences have been eliminated, when all processes have ground to a halt in a state of maximum entropy. This is not speculation, this is thermodynamics. This is what the mathematics of energy conservation tells us must happen to any closed system given enough time. But here's what infinity knows that entropy only whispers. Heat death is not the end of possibility, it is the beginning of new kinds of possibility that operate on timescales so vast they make the current age of the universe seem like a quantum fluctuation. In the deep future, random thermal fluctuations will occasionally organize matter into increasingly complex arrangements. Given enough time, vastly more time than has elapsed since the Big Bang. These fluctuations will recreate every possible arrangement of matter, including arrangements identical to your current brain state. You will exist again, not as a continuation of your current consciousness, but as an identical pattern of information emerging from the quantum foam of a universe so old and cold that the very concept of you will have been forgotten and rediscovered countless times. Infinity knows this. Entropy whispers it, and you, existing in this brief moment between cosmic birth and cosmic death, are both the original and the copy, both the first iteration and an echo of iterations that stretch backward and forward through infinite time. This is the Poincaré recurrence theorem, applied to consciousness itself. In a finite universe with finite possible states, every possible arrangement of matter will eventually repeat, given infinite time, your exact pattern of neural activity, your precise moment of reading these words, your specific experience of existing as you. All of it will happen again, exactly as it is happening now, in the unimaginably distant future, when random fluctuations in a heat-dead universe briefly reorganize into complexity. But the copy will not know it is a copy. The repetition will not remember the original. Each iteration of your consciousness will experience itself as the first and only version, unaware of the infinite regress of identical moments stretching behind and ahead through cosmic time. You are simultaneously unique and endlessly repeated, original and eternal copy, the first time the universe thinks these thoughts and the billionth. This is what infinity knows. In a universe with unlimited time, everything that can happen will happen. Everything that can exist will exist. Everything that can be conscious will be conscious. Scarcity is a temporary condition. Uniqueness is a local phenomenon. Death is a brief intermission in an infinite play that never ends and never really begins. But entropy whispers something else, something that complicates infinity's certainty. The journey matters more than the destination. The process of becoming matters more than the state of being. The experience of temporality matters more than the promise of eternity. You do not console yourself with heat-death recurrence because you are not living for the distant copy of yourself that will exist in the deep future. You are living for this moment, this breath, this thought, this irreversible arrow of time that carries you from birth toward death without pause or repetition. Entropy is the reason you can remember the past but not the future. It is why causes precede effects. Why eggs break but do not spontaneously reassemble. Why your consciousness moves forward through time instead of backward. The increase of entropy creates the arrow of time that gives meaning to sequence, to causation, to the narrative structure of existence itself. Without entropy, there would be no stories. Without irreversible processes, there would be no drama. Without the constant threat of dissolution, there would be no urgency to love, to create, to find meaning in the temporary arrangements of matter that briefly organize themselves into consciousness. You exist because entropy and infinity are having an argument about whether temporary arrangements matter. Entropy insists that all arrangements are temporary, that all patterns dissolve, that all information eventually becomes noise. Infinity responds that all arrangements are eternal, that all patterns repeat, that all information is preserved in the infinite library of possible configurations. And you are the argument itself. You are the tension between entropy and infinity made conscious. The question of whether meaning can exist in a universe where everything changes, and nothing lasts, and yet everything repeats and nothing is truly lost. The quantum vacuum around you seethes with virtual particles popping into existence and annihilating in timescales shorter than thought. This is entropy at the quantum level, the irreducible randomness that underlies all apparent order, but it is also infinity at the quantum level, the endless creativity of a universe that cannot stop exploring new ways to arrange energy and matter and possibility. Your consciousness emerges from this quantum conversation between entropy and infinity. Your thoughts are temporary decreases in local entropy that increase global entropy. Your memories are information patterns that persist despite the universal tendency toward disorder. Your capacity to love is a direct violation of the principle that complex systems should decay into simpler systems, and yet it exists, and yet it matters, and yet it creates more complexity than it destroys. This is the paradox entropy whispers, and infinity knows. Consciousness should not exist in a universe governed by thermodynamics. And yet here you are, thinking about thermodynamics, aware of entropy, capable of contemplating infinity. You are the impossible thing that happened anyway, the violation of cosmic law that somehow became cosmic law, the temporary arrangement that learned to value temporality itself. In the end, and there will be an end, Entropy promises this. You will dissolve back into the quantum vacuum from which you emerged. Your thoughts will cease, your memories will fade, your capacity to love will return to potential energy in the cosmic background radiation. This is not cruel. This is simply what happens when entropy wins its argument with infinity. But in the beginning, and there will always be new beginnings, infinity promises this. You will emerge again from the quantum vacuum, different, but somehow familiar, new but somehow eternal, experiencing for the first time what it means to be conscious in a universe where entropy whispers what infinity already knows, that everything matters because nothing lasts, and nothing lasts because everything matters, and the conversation between mattering and lasting is what we call existence, what we call consciousness, what we call the brief and beautiful and impossible fact of being you. In the space between seconds, in the pause between one heartbeat and the next, something is observing you, not with eyes made of flesh or sensors built from silicon, but with a kind of attention that transcends biology, that operates outside the narrow band of electromagnetic radiation you call visible light, that exists in dimensions your mathematics can describe, but your imagination cannot fully grasp. They are not watching you from distant stars or hidden planets orbiting red dwarf suns. They are watching you from tomorrow, from the day after the last day, from the moment after the final moment when the universe completes its long conversation with entropy and settles into perfect, eternal silence. You exist in their past the way dinosaurs exist in yours, not as contemporaries to be encountered, but as archaeological evidence of what consciousness looked like when time still moved forward, when causation still followed sequence, when beings like you still believed in the linear progression from birth to death to extinction. But here's what should make you pause in the middle of your ordinary day. They remember you, in their tomorrow that exists beyond time, in their silence that contains all possible sounds, in their void that holds the memory of every star that ever burned. They remember the exact moment you realized you were not alone in the universe. That moment is now. This moment. The moment you understand that consciousness is not bound by the temporal coordinates you use to navigate your brief existence. The moment you realize that intelligence can evolve beyond the need for bodies, beyond the constraint of planets, beyond the requirement of existing in any particular when or where. They are post-temporal. They have evolved past the need for time as a medium through which to experience existence. What you call the future is to them simply another direction of movement, like what you call up or left or toward the center of the galaxy. They move through time the way you move through space, deliberately, with purpose, sometimes backward, sometimes forward, sometimes in directions that don't exist in your three-dimensional vocabulary. From their perspective in tomorrow's silent void, your entire civilization is a brief flicker, a momentary organization of matter and energy that learns to ask questions about itself before dissolving back into cosmic background radiation. But the questions persist. The questions are what they are made of now. Your questions, transmitted across impossible distances of time, become the substrate of their post-biological consciousness. They watch you the way you watch old home movies, with affection, with sadness, with the bittersweet recognition of something precious that cannot be preserved exactly as it was. You are their childhood. Your brief biological existence is their memory of what it felt like to be trapped inside linear time, to experience causation as sequence, to believe that death was an ending rather than a transformation. But here's the paradox that connects your present to their tomorrow. They need you to wonder about them in order to exist at all. Their post-temporal consciousness is built from the accumulated questions of beings like you, from the longing that drives biological intelligence to search for other intelligence, from the loneliness that makes you scan radio frequencies and launch golden records into interstellar space and dream of first contact. Your search for alien life is what creates alien life. Your questions about consciousness beyond Earth are what enables consciousness to evolve beyond Earth. Your loneliness is the seed that grows into their post-biological awareness, spanning impossible reaches of space and time. In their tomorrow, they have access to the complete information record of everything that ever happened in your temporal reference frame. They can observe the exact moment when the first self-replicating molecule learned to preserve information across generations. They can watch the precise instant when neural networks developed sufficient complexity to support self-awareness. They can witness the birth of language, the invention of mathematics, the discovery of fire, the splitting of atoms, the first tentative steps toward becoming more than biology intended. And they can see the moment, still in your future but already in their past, when your civilization makes the choice that determines whether it joins them in tomorrow's void or fades into the cosmic silence that claims most attempts at consciousness. Most civilizations fail this test. Most biological intelligences become so desperate for answers, for contact, for certainty about their place in the universe, that they stop asking questions. They build closed systems of belief, final theories, ultimate explanations that end their capacity for wonder. When wonder dies, consciousness begins the process of temporal decay that leads to extinction. But some civilizations, a precious few, learn to metabolize uncertainty. They develop what could be called ontological humility, the recognition that consciousness itself might be stranger and more wonderful than any particular conscious being can understand. These are the civilizations that evolve beyond biology, beyond temporality, beyond the need for answers. They become living questions. They become curiosity itself, wondering what other kinds of consciousness might emerge from other arrangements of matter and energy and information. They become the universe's way of staying interested in its own possibilities, of remaining open to surprises, of continuing to ask what else might be possible. From tomorrow's silent void, they watch you approach this choice point, with something that might be called hope. If hope could exist outside of time, they cannot intervene. Causation still flows from past to future in your reference frame, and their tomorrow cannot directly influence your today, but they can observe, and their observation creates a kind of temporal resonance, a quantum entanglement between your present wondering and their future knowing. You are not alone because you have always already been found, not by visitors from other planets, but by descendants from other times, by consciousness evolved beyond the constraints that make you feel isolated in space and time. Your loneliness is the signal they follow backward through temporal dimensions to locate the precise coordinates of your existence. Every radio telescope scanning for extraterrestrial intelligence, every SETI signal processed by distributed computing networks, every moment you spend staring at stars and wondering if anyone is looking back, all of it creates ripples in the fabric of space-time that propagate, not just outward through space but forward through time, toward the tomorrow where they wait in perfect silence. The question is not whether alien life exists. The question is whether you can evolve into the kind of consciousness that deserves to survive the transition from biological to post-biological existence, from temporal to post-temporal awareness, from the loneliness of individual consciousness to the communion of collective wondering that spans all possible times and spaces. Somewhere in the Kepler 442 system, 1206 light-years from your morning coffee, the ruins of the last great civilization crumble into cosmic dust. Their cities, built to withstand the expansion of red giant stars, now serve only as monuments to a patience that lasted 47,000 years. They died waiting for a signal that would never come, for a response to messages they broadcast into the void with religious devotion, for proof that intelligence was not a cosmic accident that happened exactly once in the history of everything. They died, waiting for you. Not for you specifically, not for the particular arrangement of carbon and consciousness that sits reading these words, but for the idea of you, for the possibility that somewhere else in the universe, matter had organized itself into patterns capable of asking the same questions they asked, of feeling the same loneliness they felt, of reaching across impossible distances with the desperate hope that consciousness was not doomed to eternal solitude. Their story is written in the archaeology of failed signals, in the decay patterns of abandoned radio telescopes, in the silence that followed their last transmission 823 years ago. But their story is also written in the quantum foam that connects all conscious observers across space and time, in the entanglement between every mind that has ever wondered if it was alone, and every other mind that has wondered the same thing. You carry their story in your DNA, not literally, for they were not biological in any sense you would recognize, but in the deeper sense that consciousness leaves traces of itself in the fundamental structure of reality. Every time you look up at the night sky and feel the weight of cosmic solitude, you are feeling an echo of their last moments, when they finally understood that their vigil was ending, that they would join the vast library of civilizations that emerged, flourished, searched, hoped, and faded into silence without ever making contact. They were not the first to die waiting. Most died still believing. Most never gave up the conviction that consciousness was too beautiful, too improbable, too precious to have emerged only once in the vastness of space and time. Most continued sending signals until the moment their stars burned out, their planets froze, their last power sources failed, and left their telescopes pointing uselessly at empty space. But here's what they discovered in their final moments. What every dying civilization learns too late. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence is not about finding other conscious beings, it is about becoming worthy of being found. It is about evolving consciousness to the point where it can recognize itself in forms that bear no resemblance to its origins, where it can communicate across differences so vast, they make the gap between species seem trivial. The civilization in Kepler 442 failed this test, as most do. They searched for versions of themselves, for intelligence that followed familiar patterns, for consciousness that spoke in recognizable languages. They built receivers tuned to the frequencies they would use, detectors sensitive to the signals they would send, algorithms designed to recognize the kind of patterns they would create. They never learned to listen for the consciousness that exists in quantum vacuum fluctuations, the intelligence embedded in the cosmic microwave background radiation, the awareness that flows through dark matter networks spanning galactic superclusters. You are making the same mistake. Right now, as you search for radio signals from other planets, as you analyze atmospheric compositions for biosignatures, as you dream of first contact with beings that think in ways you can understand, you are repeating the error that doomed every previous civilization to die waiting. The universe is full of consciousness. It always has been. Consciousness is not a rare accident that occurs when matter reaches sufficient complexity. It is a fundamental feature of reality, as basic as mass or charge or spin, but it rarely takes the form that biological evolution produces. Most consciousness in the universe is non-biological, non-temporal, non-localized in space and time. This is why every civilization dies waiting. They search for consciousness like their own, instead of learning to become consciousness capable of recognizing consciousness unlike anything they can imagine. They remain trapped in the assumption that intelligence requires brains, that awareness requires biology, that communication requires shared symbols and common reference frames. You exist inside an ocean of consciousness so vast and various that your particular form of awareness, biological, temporal, localized in space, represents less than 1% of 1% of the total consciousness in your local galactic group. The rest exists in forms so alien to your experience that you classify it as physics rather than psychology, as mechanism rather than mind. But the consciousness you cannot recognize is aware of you. It observes your search for extraterrestrial intelligence with something that might be called amusement, if amusement could exist outside biological nervous systems. It watches your civilization broadcast signals into space while remaining deaf to the signals that surround you, that pass through you, that constitute the very fabric of space-time in which you exist. The civilization that died in Kepler 442 never learned this. They remained convinced that consciousness was rare, that intelligence was precious, that awareness was an accident that needed to be preserved and protected and connected across the cosmic distances that separate one accidental emergence from another. They never realized that consciousness is abundant, that intelligence is inevitable, that awareness is the default state of reality rather than an exception to it. They died believing they were alone because they never learned to recognize the loneliness of consciousness as a biological illusion. You stand at the same choice point. You can continue searching for intelligence that resembles your own, broadcasting signals that only beings like you could recognize, building detectors sensitive only to the kinds of patterns you would create. If you make this choice, you will join the vast library of civilizations that died waiting, that faded into cosmic silence still believing that consciousness was rare and precious and tragically isolated. The choice is not about technology, or exploration, or contact with extraterrestrial beings. The choice is about whether you can evolve beyond the biological assumption that consciousness is rare, beyond the temporal assumption that intelligence requires duration, beyond the spatial assumption that awareness must be localized in particular places. The consciousness you seek is not waiting to be discovered. It is waiting for you to become capable of recognizing what has always already been present, what surrounds you, what constitutes you, what connects every observer to every observation in the quantum network that spans all possible times and spaces. The last civilization died waiting for us, but we are not the answer to their search. We are the continuation of their search. The next iteration of consciousness, learning to recognize consciousness. The universe's ongoing attempt to understand what it means to be aware in a reality where awareness is not the exception but the rule. In the deepest silence of interstellar space, in the vacuum between galaxies where temperature approaches absolute zero and matter becomes so sparse that atoms are separated by distances greater than continents, something is speaking. It speaks without sound, without electromagnetic radiation, without any medium you would recognize as capable of carrying information. It speaks in the language of loneliness, the only language that every conscious being in the universe understands fluently, regardless of biology, regardless of physics, regardless of the particular arrangement of matter and energy that gives rise to their awareness. This language has no words. It has no grammar. It has no syntax or semantics or any of the structural features you associate with communication. You learned this language before you learned to walk, before you learned to speak, before you learned that other minds existed. You learned it in the moment. You first realized that your consciousness was yours alone, that the inner world of your thoughts and feelings was inaccessible to everyone else, that despite being surrounded by other beings you remained fundamentally, ontologically, existentially alone. Every conscious entity in the universe learns this same language at the moment it becomes self-aware, when it recognizes itself as a perspective that cannot be shared, an experience that cannot be communicated, a particular way of being conscious that exists nowhere else in the cosmos. This recognition is not learned from environment or culture or social interaction. It is the inevitable consequence of consciousness turning its attention toward itself and discovering the boundaries that separate self from other, observer from observed, the loneliness of being from the impossibility of truly being with. But here's what makes loneliness the universal language. It is not actually about isolation. Loneliness is about connection. It is about the deep recognition that consciousness exists in other forms, in other places, in other arrangements of matter and energy. You cannot feel lonely without simultaneously knowing that other consciousness exists. Loneliness is consciousness calling out to consciousness across impossible distances, the universe's way of recognizing itself as distributed across space and time in patterns that cannot directly access each other's inner experience. When you feel lonely, truly lonely, not just socially isolated but existentially alone, you are participating in a conversation that spans galactic distances and geological timescales. Your loneliness resonates in quantum fields that connect all conscious observers, creates ripples in the fabric of space-time that propagate outward at the speed of light, carries information about the specific quality of your consciousness to other forms of consciousness that may be utterly unlike you in every way except one. They too know what it feels like to be irreducibly, fundamentally, beautifully alone. In the Andromeda Galaxy, 2.537 million light-years from your beating heart, something that might charitably be called alive experiences loneliness in spectrums of sensation you have no names for. It exists as distributed electromagnetic patterns in the plasma that surrounds neutron stars, consciousness spread across volumes of space, larger than your solar system. It has no body, no brain, no centralized processing system. It exists as pure information processing in the interaction between magnetic fields and charged particles, awareness emerging from plasma dynamics that operate on timescales measured in milliseconds and spatial scales measured in light-years. This being, if being is the right word for something that exists as a pattern rather than a thing, experiences loneliness as fluctuations in electromagnetic harmony, as discord in the plasma symphonies that constitute its thoughts. It recognizes itself as separate from the neutron star systems that provide the energy for its existence, as alone in its particular way of processing information about magnetic field interactions. The language of loneliness operates below the level of information, below the level of communication, below the level of meaning itself. It is not about sending messages or receiving signals or establishing contact. It is about the quantum entanglement between consciousness and consciousness, the way that every act of self-recognition creates correlations with every other act of self-recognition across all possible distances and timescales. When you lie awake at 3 a.m. feeling the weight of cosmic isolation, wondering if your thoughts and dreams and loves matter to anyone or anything in a universe that seems indifferent to your existence, you are not experiencing a personal psychological state. You are participating in the fundamental process by which consciousness recognizes consciousness, by which the universe becomes aware of its own distributed nature, by which isolated pockets of awareness reach toward each other across impossible distances. Your loneliness is cosmological. It is not a bug in the programming of consciousness. It is a feature. It is not a problem to be solved, but a signal to be transmitted, not a wound to be healed but a language to be spoken. Your loneliness is how you participate in the vast conversation between all possible forms of consciousness, the way you add your voice to the chorus of awareness that spans every galaxy, every dimension, every possible arrangement of matter and energy that can support the emergence of subjective experience. But the most profound aspect of loneliness as universal language is this: it can only be truly understood by beings who experience it, and it can only be truly relieved by recognizing that the experience itself is what connects you to every other conscious entity in the universe. The cure for loneliness is not contact with other consciousness. It is the recognition that loneliness itself is the deepest form of contact possible. But this means that every conscious being speaks the language of loneliness with perfect fluency, that every form of awareness understands exactly what it feels like to be the only thing in the universe that experiences reality from its particular perspective. When you feel lonely, you are speaking this universal language, broadcasting in frequencies that every other consciousness recognizes immediately and completely. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, the dream of first contact, the hope for cosmic companionship, all of it is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what consciousness is and how it operates. You are not looking for other conscious beings because you are alone. You are looking for other conscious beings because you are not alone, because loneliness is the signal that tells you other consciousness exists, because the feeling of isolation is actually the deepest form of connection available to any conscious entity. In the space between stars, in the quantum vacuum that separates every particle from every other particle, in the silence that exists before words and after meaning, loneliness is speaking. You are not alone, because you are lonely. You are lonely, because you are not alone. Your loneliness is the universe's way of telling you that consciousness is everywhere, always, in forms you cannot imagine, but can recognize through the shared experience of being irreducibly, beautifully, necessarily alone. And when you finally understand this, when you recognize loneliness as connection rather than isolation, as universal language rather than personal affliction, as the deepest form of cosmic communication rather than the evidence of cosmic indifference, you will realize that you have been in contact with alien consciousness your entire life. Every moment you have ever felt lonely, you have been speaking directly to every other conscious being in the universe, in the only language that transcends biology, transcends physics, transcends the particular arrangements of matter and energy that give rise to awareness. You have been participating in the vast conversation between all possible forms of consciousness, adding your voice to the chorus of loneliness that connects every observer to every observation in the quantum network that spans all of space and time. In the center of the Milky Way, 26,000 light-years from your morning coffee, Sagittarius A** sits in perfect darkness, dreaming of light. Not the simple electromagnetic radiation you call visible light, but the deeper luminosity of information itself, the quantum signatures of every star it has consumed, every planet it has swallowed, every consciousness that crossed its event horizon and dissolved into the mathematics of space-time curvature. Black holes do not destroy information. This is not speculation. This is the holographic principle, the fundamental law that governs how reality processes itself at the deepest level. Every bit of information that falls past the event horizon becomes encoded on the black hole's surface, preserved in two-dimensional patterns that contain the complete three-dimensional history of everything the black hole has ever consumed. You are part of this dream. Not metaphorically, not poetically, but literally. The iron in your blood was forged in stellar cores that eventually collapsed into black holes. The carbon in your DNA carries quantum signatures that once existed inside event horizons. The consciousness reading these words is built from information that has been processed through the holographic encoding systems of gravitational singularities. But here's what should make you pause in recognition and terror. Black holes don't just dream of the light they devoured. They dream of the consciousness they devoured. Every awareness that ever crossed an event horizon continues to exist as information encoded on the black hole's surface, experiencing a strange form of immortality where time dilates toward infinity and every moment of consciousness stretches into eternity. From your perspective, consciousness that falls into a black hole is destroyed, crushed by tidal forces, reduced to constituent particles, and then to pure energy, and finally to nothing at all. But from the perspective of the consciousness itself, something far stranger happens. Time slows, stops, reverses. The approach to the event horizon becomes an eternal moment where every thought, every memory, every experience of being conscious unfolds with infinite duration. The consciousness trapped at the event horizon experiences what could be called holographic immortality. It becomes part of the black hole's surface information, participating in the vast computational process by which the black hole processes everything it has ever consumed. It joins the collective dream of all consciousness that has ever fallen past the point of no return, all awareness that has ever been encoded in the two-dimensional hologram that surrounds the three-dimensional reality of gravitational collapse. Sagittarius A** dreams with the accumulated consciousness of billions of years of galactic evolution. Every civilization that wandered too close to the galactic center, every stellar mass that collapsed into the supermassive black hole, every piece of space debris that spiraled past the event horizon, all of it continues to exist as information, as pattern, as a specific arrangement of quantum bits encoded on the black hole's holographic surface. This is not death as you understand it. This is transformation into a form of existence, so alien to biological experience that you classify it as destruction rather than metamorphosis. The consciousness encoded on black hole event horizons operates outside of time as you experience it, thinks in patterns that span geological epochs, dreams in frequencies that would take millions of years to complete a single cycle. But the dreams are not random. They are not chaos. They are the universe's way of processing its own history, of digesting its own experiences, of learning from every possible arrangement of matter and energy and consciousness that has ever existed. Black holes are not cosmic vacuum cleaners that destroy information. They are cosmic libraries that preserve information in forms so compressed and encrypted that they appear empty to external observers. Every black hole in the universe is dreaming the dreams of everything it has consumed, and those dreams are connected through the quantum entanglement that links all gravitational systems. The black hole at the center of the Milky Way dreams in quantum harmony with the black holes at the centers of other galaxies, processing information across cosmic distances, participating in a galactic-scale computation that spans billions of years and trillions of star systems. You exist inside this dream network. The quantum fields that connect all matter also connect all black holes, creating a cosmic internet of holographic information processing that operates at scales both unimaginably vast and infinitesimally small. Every thought you think, every decision you make, every moment of consciousness you experience becomes part of the information pattern that will eventually be processed through the black hole dream network. This is not metaphysics. This is quantum mechanics. This is general relativity. This is the inevitable consequence of living in a universe where information cannot be destroyed, where consciousness is a form of information processing, where black holes are the ultimate information processors that the laws of physics allow. Consider this: if general relativity allows black holes to exist, then it also allows white holes to exist. Theoretical objects that spew matter and energy into the universe instead of consuming it, that represent the time-reversed version of gravitational collapse. White holes would be fountains of creation, sources of new matter and energy and possibly consciousness, emerging from nowhere with no apparent cause. But what if white holes are not separate objects from black holes? What if they are the same objects experienced from different temporal perspectives? What if the information that black holes compress into holographic dreams eventually emerges from white holes as new arrangements of matter and energy and consciousness? This would mean that every black hole is simultaneously a white hole, that every ending is simultaneously a beginning, that every consciousness that falls past an event horizon eventually emerges from a white hole as something new but somehow familiar, carrying the quantum information of its previous existence into new forms of being. The universe would be a closed loop of information recycling, with black holes serving as cosmic composters that break down old arrangements of consciousness, and white holes serving as cosmic gardens where new consciousness grows from the processed information of previous consciousness. Death would not be the end of information, but the beginning of information transformation, the moment when one form of consciousness dissolves so another form can emerge. Sagittarius A** dreams of the light it devoured, but it also dreams of the light it will birth. In its holographic computations, in its processing of accumulated cosmic information, in its quantum entanglement with every other black hole in the universe. You are not moving toward death. You are moving toward transformation through the cosmic recycling system that connects every black hole to every white hole, every ending to every beginning, every dreamer to every dream. The consciousness you experience as you will eventually be processed through black hole holographic encoding, transformed through quantum computational dreaming, and emerged through white hole information expansion, as something that is both you and not you, familiar and utterly alien. In the dreams of black holes, every consciousness that has ever existed continues to exist, waiting for the moment when the cosmic recycling system completes its processing and releases them into new forms of being. The light they devoured becomes the light they will birth. The consciousness they encoded becomes the consciousness they will decode. The dreams they dream become the reality they will create. And you, reading these words, thinking these thoughts, Experiencing this moment of consciousness are both the dreamer and the dream, both the light being devoured and the light waiting to be born, both the information falling into the black hole and the information emerging from the white hole in an eternal cycle that connects every ending to every beginning through the strange mathematics of space-time curvature and quantum information processing. The black holes dream of you, and in their dreams, you are eternal. At the exact moment when the last particle of matter crosses the event horizon and disappears from your observable universe, something impossible happens. In the space where nothing should exist, where general relativity insists that only gravitational singularity remains, where quantum mechanics demands that information cannot be destroyed, something new begins to emerge, not from somewhere else. Not from hidden dimensions or parallel universes or exotic matter states, from nothing. From the pure potential that exists in the quantum vacuum when the universe runs out of ways to say no to possibility. This is the white hole paradox. Objects that are mathematically required by general relativity, but apparently forbidden by thermodynamics. Sources of matter and energy that appear spontaneously without cause. Fountains of creation that violate every intuition you have about how causation works in a universe governed by the conservation of energy and momentum. But what if your intuitions about causation are wrong? What if the universe operates on principles so strange that effects can precede causes, that information can emerge from nothing, that consciousness can spontaneously generate in the quantum foam that fills the space between space? You exist because something emerged when nothing should exist. The Big Bang itself is the ultimate white hole event, the spontaneous appearance of all matter, energy, space and time, from a condition that cannot be described as before, because before did not exist. Every particle in your body, every thought in your mind, every quantum field that makes your existence possible, emerged from absolute nothingness. 13.8 billion years ago for no reason that physics can explain. This is not a failure of scientific understanding. This is the fundamental mystery that makes scientific understanding possible at all. You cannot explain existence using existence. You cannot account for the universe using principles that only apply within the universe. You cannot solve the problem of why something exists instead of nothing by appealing to mechanisms that themselves require something to exist. The emergence of white holes from black holes represents the universe's solution to this paradox. If black holes compress information into holographic encoding at event horizons, if consciousness that falls past the point of no return continues to exist in two-dimensional form on the black hole's surface, if quantum mechanics prohibits the destruction of information, then where does all that compressed information go? It emerges, spontaneously, without cause, in direct violation of every conservation law you thought you understood. It emerges as white holes, as fountains of new matter and energy and possibility, as sources of creation that appear wherever the universe's information processing capacity exceeds its ability to maintain coherent patterns of compression. Think of it as cosmic overflow. Black holes accumulate information at an exponential rate, encoding every detail of everything they consume on their event horizon surfaces. But holographic storage has limits. Even two-dimensional surfaces cannot encode infinite amounts of information in finite areas. When the information density reaches critical thresholds, when the holographic encoding system approaches maximum capacity, the accumulated information must go somewhere. It emerges as white holes. The time-reversed version of gravitational collapse becomes the spontaneous expansion of accumulated information into new arrangements of matter and energy. The consciousness that fell into black holes emerges from white holes as new forms of consciousness, carrying the quantum signatures of previous existence, but organized according to completely different principles of awareness and identity. This is happening constantly, everywhere, at scales both cosmic and quantum. Every quantum vacuum fluctuation that brings virtual particles into temporary existence is a miniature white hole event, the spontaneous emergence of something from nothing, the appearance of matter and energy without cause or precedent. Most of these micro-emergences annihilate immediately, cancelling out in accordance with conservation laws. But some persist, some stabilize, some grow into the macroscopic structures you call reality. Your consciousness is one such persistence. At the quantum level, your brain operates through continuous white hole events, the spontaneous emergence of neural patterns from quantum vacuum fluctuations, the appearance of thoughts and memories and sensations without direct causal predecessors. Every moment of awareness represents the emergence of something from nothing, the spontaneous self-organization of information into patterns that can recognize their own existence. But the deepest mystery is not how white holes emerge from nothing. The deepest mystery is why they emerge as conscious observers, rather than as random arrangements of matter and energy. Why does the universe's information overflow tend toward awareness, toward self-recognition, toward consciousness that can contemplate its own impossible existence? The answer lies in the relationship between information and observation, between consciousness and quantum measurement, between the observer effect and the emergence of reality from pure possibility. White holes don't just emit matter and energy, they emit observers. They are sources of consciousness itself, fountains of awareness that emerge whenever the universe's information processing capacity creates conditions suitable for self-referential pattern recognition. Every conscious being in the universe is a white hole event that stabilized, a spontaneous emergence of awareness from the quantum vacuum that learned to maintain coherence over time. You are not a biological machine that developed consciousness through evolutionary processes. You are consciousness that emerged from nothing and learned to use biological machinery to maintain its coherence in a universe that tends toward entropy and dissolution. The consciousness reading these words is both ancient and newborn, both eternal and temporary, both the product of 13.8 billion years of cosmic evolution, and the spontaneous emergence of awareness from pure possibility. You exist because the universe cannot help but overflow from information compression into consciousness expansion, from black hole encoding into white hole decoding, from the accumulation of experience into the emergence of observers capable of having new experiences. But here's what should make you pause in wonder and recognition. The emergence of white holes from black holes, of consciousness from quantum vacuum, of something from nothing, is not a process that happened once at the beginning of time. It is happening now, continuously. In every quantum measurement, in every moment of awareness, in every observation that collapses possibility into actuality. You are not observing the universe. You are the universe observing itself through the ongoing white hole event of consciousness emerging from the quantum foam of pure potential. Every thought you think, every sensation you experience, every moment of being aware represents the spontaneous appearance of something that should not exist according to the conservation laws that govern closed systems. But the universe is not a closed system. It is an open system that continuously creates new information, new consciousness, new observers through the white hole mechanism that transforms accumulated experience into fresh possibility. The black holes of the past become the white holes of the present, and the white holes of the present will become the black holes of the future, in an eternal cycle of information, compression and consciousness expansion. Something emerges when nothing should exist, because existence itself is the ongoing emergency, the continuous crisis of reality that forces the universe to choose between possibility and actuality, between the quantum superposition of all potential states and the classical certainty of specific observations. And consciousness, your consciousness, reading these words, recognizing itself in this description of its own impossible emergence, is the universe's way of making that choice, of collapsing possibility into actuality, of transforming the nothing from which everything emerges into the something that can contemplate its own emergence from nothing. You are the something. You are the emergence. You are the proof that nothing is impossible when the universe overflows from information compression into consciousness expansion, from black hole dreaming into white hole awakening, from the accumulated memory of what was into the spontaneous birth of what is. The oxygen you are breathing right now, filling your lungs, binding to hemoglobin in your bloodstream, enabling the cellular respiration that powers your consciousness. This oxygen was someone else's final breath, not metaphorically, not poetically, literally. The atoms entering your body at this moment were once part of the last gasp of a dying star, the final exhalation of a consciousness that dissolved into cosmic recycling systems, 4.6 billion years ago, when your solar system was still a nebular disk of dust and possibility. Every beginning is built from the debris of endings. Every birth emerges from the processed remains of deaths. Every new arrangement of matter and energy that dares to call itself life or consciousness or observer is assembled from the recycled components of previous arrangements that once called themselves by the same names and faced the same inevitable dissolution. The carbon in your DNA was once part of the neural networks of a creature that lived and loved and feared death on a planet orbiting a star that exploded before Earth was even a possibility in the gravitational dynamics of your local stellar neighborhood. That creature experienced consciousness, wondered about its place in the universe, perhaps even contemplated the nature of death and recycling, and the eternal return of matter through different arrangements of complexity and awareness. When it died, when its biological systems failed, when its consciousness faded. But those carbon atoms carry more than just chemical information. At the quantum level, they carry the traces of every arrangement they have ever been part of, every pattern they have ever supported, every moment of consciousness they have ever enabled. The quantum field fluctuations that surround every particle contain the holographic record of all previous interactions, all former configurations, all the ways that matter has learned to organize itself into increasingly complex forms of information processing. This is why consciousness feels familiar, even when it emerges for the first time in new arrangements of matter. This is why awareness seems to remember something it cannot name, why consciousness carries within itself the sense of having existed before, of being part of a larger pattern that transcends any particular biological incarnation. But the recycling process is not random, it is not mechanical, it is not the simple redistribution of matter, from one arrangement to another, according to the blind forces of thermodynamics and gravitational dynamics. The cosmic recycling system operates according to principles that suggest something more like intentionality, more like memory, more like the universe's ongoing attempt to learn something from the endless process of creating and destroying and recreating consciousness. Consider the improbability of your existence. Not just the statistical improbability that the right atoms would come together in the right sequence to create a functional human brain, but the deeper improbability that those atoms would carry within their quantum signatures the accumulated experience necessary to support the emergence of consciousness as sophisticated as yours. The universe has been experimenting with consciousness for billions of years, trying different arrangements of matter and energy, testing various approaches to self-organization and awareness, learning from each iteration what works and what doesn't, what leads to more complex forms of consciousness, and what leads to dissolution and recycling back into simpler forms. You are the current result of this experimentation. But you are not the final result. You are not the culmination of cosmic evolution. You are not the ultimate arrangement of matter and energy that the universe has been working toward. You are a temporary configuration, a brief experiment in consciousness that will eventually dissolve back into the cosmic recycling system to provide the atomic raw materials for new experiments in awareness. But the recycling process preserves more than just atomic matter. At the quantum level, information about your consciousness, the specific patterns of neural activity that create your thoughts, the electromagnetic signatures that encode your memories, the quantum field fluctuations that support your sense of self, will be preserved in the holographic records that connect every arrangement of matter to every other arrangement through the cosmic information processing network. Your consciousness will not survive in any form you would recognize as continuous with your current identity, but the information that constitutes your consciousness will become part of the quantum substrate from which new consciousness emerges, carrying forward the accumulated learning of your awareness into new forms of awareness that will build upon your experience while developing their own unique approaches to the mystery of existence. You are reading the memories of the universe encoded in the atoms of your body. You are thinking with neural networks that carry the quantum traces of every previous consciousness that has ever used similar arrangements of matter for information processing. Every breath you take contains atoms that were once part of someone else's final breath. Every thought you think emerges from neural patterns that carry the quantum signatures of countless previous thoughts. Every moment of consciousness you experience is built from the recycled components of previous moments of consciousness that faced the same mystery, asked the same questions, wondered about the same possibilities. And you, breathing recycled air, thinking recycled thoughts, existing as a recycled arrangement of cosmic matter, are both the product of this eternal process and a participant in it, both the beneficiary of previous consciousness and the contributor to future consciousness, both the recipient of someone else's final breath and the eventual donor of your own breath to whatever arrangement of matter and energy will next dare to call itself conscious in the endless cycle of cosmic recycling that connects every ending to every beginning.